Well, we're here at ACC Kickoff, a whole lot of buzz going around the event, and who better to talk about the look and the feel in the upcoming season than one of the voices of the conference for ESPN and the ACC Network, Wes Durham. Wes, thanks for joining us.
Austin, my pleasure.
So I got to ask you, there's a lot of talk about the stability that the conference has now, getting past those lawsuits, Florida State and Clemson. How do you feel about the stability of the ACC?
I do believe that. I think there's been a calming, so to speak, of maybe what the last 2 or 3 years have been like. I also think, too, that college athletics is kind of in a calming place here. A lot of talk about the playoff, obviously, and the structure and the composition and all those things. But the reality of it is we're in that holding pattern. I mean, we're in 2025. Not a lot can happen for the next 5 years. I mean, teams have to be very careful. Institutions have to really do some soul searching based on the House settlement, right? How's that going to go? I do think the ACC is in a really, really good place, and I feel like for the first time, there is some actual continuity here. There's, even with first-year coaches and things like that, I still think we now know what Stanford, Cal, and SMU are doing after 1 year, so to speak. We're going to find out, kind of how this league advances itself, with the next year of the expanded playoff.
Well, speaking about that expanded playoff, Commissioner Phillips talked about where the ACC sits, kind of lining up with the SEC and the Big 12. But what makes the most sense for college football and the conference?
Well, look, the automatic bid situation, I understand how that concept can be designed. I understand the document that everybody participated in, right? But it feels like, and you probably recognize this as well, for the American sporting public to buy in to however this is going to land at 16, they've got to trust that there's some degree of equality to the process, right? And I keep coming back, the 511 seems fine to me because I think the public can bite into everybody has a chance. And you start handing out automatic bids, and if there's 4 here and 4 there and 2 somewhere else or 3 or whatever the number is, it feels like then you're fencing out some people. And if the college game wants to even kind of challenge the National Football League in some small way, I think you've got to create a degree of equality in the process.
You talked a little bit about name, image, and likeness. Yeah. The House settlement, we write about it ad nauseum, it feels like, on the business side.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the House settlement is kind of, hopefully at least the decision, decided, and we can move forward a little bit, how to implement it. Like, from your talk and the talk here at ACC Kickoff, what are you hearing in terms of how schools are responding to all of it?
I think the institutions have built an initial plan, right? They've got the understanding of how the collectives now work beyond the original cut of the 20 and a half. They're full steam ahead on the 20 and a half. To me, the variable now is going to be what other interests now with the ruling this week and the settlement a little bit on the extra money. How does that get processed? And what sports are, cited out, if you will, at each individual institution? Is football going to be the strongest sport, the biggest investment of every school nationally or in the ACC? I'm not sure of that. I think that's going to be really interesting to see. The second part of this is how much volatility do we have in where that number of 20 and a half goes every year? Some schools probably get a little uncomfortable depending on the way it rises, right? I think we all got to sit back, let this settle in for 2 or 3 years before any hard, fast decisions get made.
Makes a lot of sense to me. We're not going to get Bill Belichick on Hard Knocks, but we are going to get a Hulu series on North Carolina football.
Yeah.
But, for the conference, what has Bill Belichick's arrival at Chapel Hill meant in terms of visibility?
Well, there's no question it's, moved the Q rating, right?
Absolutely.
Carolina football's probably been discussed more since December than it had in the previous 20 years.
Yes, sir.
Collectively. I think for the ACC, he's this year's version of Deion Sanders. I mean, every game Bill Belichick coaches is probably going to be on some higher level line in terms of the television coverage. It's ESPN on opening night, I think, Labor Day night against TCU. I expect most every game to be on one of the higher level networks with ESPN, maybe 1 or 2 on ACC Network, but everything else will be up, ABC or on down the line. I think that's the kind of coverage they deserve. That's the reason you hire the guy. And I think it'll be a fascinating story. And if his team is successful, Austin, it's only going to add to the momentum, I think, that has been built in one way or another since he was hired.
All right, well, so get you out of here on this. There's been a lot of turnover, not just at the coaching level, but on the athletic director side, long tenured officials, Bubba Cunningham at Chapel Hill, guys like Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma. Are we going to see more business-minded folks coming into college, and what does that mean for the business?
It's interesting you bring that up because I was having that conversation the other day, and Bubba Cunningham and Joe Castiglione were losing not only 2 long-tenured athletic administrators, we're losing trusted voices in the room among their colleagues. I know they're going to still have some connectivity with their respective institutions, and I think guys like Bubba and Joe play a critical role in the futures of institutions. Guys with that much experience, that much knowledge, have to stay around and stay close. They can help those institutions even in their, quote, retirement or next chapters. But I'm also encouraged by the fact, we just saw Jay Back go Georgia Tech to Michigan State. Ryan Alpert comes in from Tennessee. I'm also really encouraged by the number 2s I've seen at Power 4 institutions who've now moved into number 1 chairs in other Power 4 leagues. I think that's an excellent sign to the health of athletic administration moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, we can't wait until we hear you on the airwaves this fall, maybe even on that direct-to-consumer product that ESPN is going to be launching. I know everyone's excited about that. Wes Durham, appreciate you chatting with us.
Thanks, Austin. My pleasure.